Hi everyone, I'm Ankita Pathak, Chief Macro and Global Strategist at Ionic Wealth, and I'm very excited to present to you the January version of Investing Pantheon. Like we say, the Investing Pantheon harmonizes timeless wisdom with modern innovation. In this version, we cover the changing global policy landscape as we step into 2025. So at one space, you have US, which has delivered a couple of rate cuts. On the other spectrum, you have Bank of Japan, who's been hiking rate cuts. And we sit in this very interesting time when Trump is making policies. So in a way, US fiscal policy is getting reformed. US monetary policy is shifting gears. In India, we have the union budget, and we have a very new monetary policy committee that will take first decisions on 7th of Feb. And then there is China, who has emerged again, given its AI prowess, but from the stimulus front, not all expectations have played out. So in this version, we'll cover where the policy landscape is headed and what it essentially means for investors. Starting with the big boss itself, as US calls itself, the United States of America. Now, Trump took office on 20th of January, and the big companies have gotten bigger under Trump. So if you look at the returns that have played since the election to now, the larger the cap, the higher the return. So US market rally has not really been very widespread. On the other side, there has been a huge AI infrastructure investment that has been made, 500 billion Stargate announcement, followed by a DeepSeek announcement, which again got topped by Alibaba's version, which made the markets move from fear that this is the end of the US tech to hope that if AI gets democratized, that means that it is now a volume game. And if everyone tends to use it, you definitely need more chips and more foundries and more front-end application users of this AI. So been an interesting journey, but overall, we've always seen that it is the Republicans which reward the market, and they are known for their market-friendly practices. In that context, we believe that even this time around, Trump is likely to dole out market-friendly policies. His current narrative is milder than what his propaganda while fighting the election was. So, for instance, he moved from 60% tariff on China to now a 10%. A lot has changed with his withdrawal of WHO, but wanting to be back again. Similarly, H-1B visa restrictions that were placed, but then Supreme Court has said they are not valid. So it is a very, very volatile space. The Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE as we call it, wants to reduce fiscal deficit, which has been one of the bigger worries for the US economy. So the Trump policy formation will be extremely important going forward. On the US inflation front, there are signs of inflation coming back. If we look at risk to the core PCE inflation, people have now expected upside risk more than a downside or a balanced risk, and higher inflation projections are building up. One way to see it is also the difference between tips and bond yield, and that differential is also going at about 2.3-2.4%, which is higher than Fed's baseline expectation of 2%. And this has come on back of very, very strong US growth. So all US growth numbers continues to be sequentially strong. The labor market is strong, the consumption pattern is strong, and any signs of recession in US are not visible at all. This has also mean that dollar index has steepened from election day of about 100. It went all the way up to 110 and has receded slightly from there. Now, the important caveat on dollar index is that it has become very sensitive to the news around tariffs. So if US does go ahead with tariffs, I think dollar index would steepen further. If US takes a backseat on tariff or parks it for next year for some reason, I think dollar index will fall from here on. The dollar index movement also meant that yields in the US have gone up. So they've gone up from about 3% to about 4.8%. And this has created a chicken and egg cycle, which is actually good for US but not so good for the rest of the world, because of high treasury yields, it is attracting money, which means that the dollar index is strengthening further. But that all is showing strength in the US economy, but is negative emerging markets. Now, what's important here is that Trump has always kind of wanted a weaker dollar, because that helps the corporates of US, which are now a global company. So if they report their revenues in dollar and dollar is weaker, their revenues tend to be higher. What can Trump do about it remains a question mark, but there is a chance that he will try to muscle his way through in hopes and anticipations of getting a weaker dollar. Now, while US cut 100 basis on rate cuts in 2024, emerging markets have had a hard time, because at one front, US was cutting rates, but dollar index has strengthened, which means the emerging markets currency had weakened. And therefore, to protect the currency, emerging markets could not cut interest rates right away. So Indonesia has just delivered the rate cut in the last month, and it is expected that India will deliver the rate cut on Feb 7th as well. The EM yield premium between US and let's say on India and China has really shrunk for very, very different reasons. I think Indian yields were very strong. They did not go up as much as US yields did. And that reflected our domestic strong demand and falling fiscal account deficit and current account deficit. On the other front end, Chinese yields have been falling and have now converged closer to the US levels, because there has been a risk of disinflation there. Now, China has been very conservative with policy so far. It has, kept fiscal deficit below 3% of GDP, and it has also not been very easy with the monetary policy up until the September of 2024. But after that, it started easing in the economy, and this was pretty much needed to revive the Chinese economy, and it had to rise like a phoenix. Now, some data in the Chinese economy has already turned, so manufacturing PMI is now looking stronger, but there is more help that the economy will need. What is happening, in our opinion, is that China wanted to wait for Trump to fire on China before they unleash the fiscal stimulus. Now that firing from Trump has also taken more time than was previously expected. So every con call of China has been talking about tariffs, but Trump has now said a 10% tariff instead of 60%, and it has not even given a date as to when they start. This means that China would want to hold on to its fiscal stimulus and only fire it when there is action from Trump in place, without which it would be wasting the fiscal stimulus, which I think Chinese policymakers are very, very actively avoiding. So while we spoke of US and China and their monetary policy landscape, Japan on the other end is walking a different direction. It is in fact raising rates. This is because inflation is back in the economy, and Bank of Japan has become very inflation and growth focused. Back home in India, we've had a period of very lenient fiscal deficit. So FRBM target pre-COVID, we were trying to get to 3.5% of GDP. Because COVID hit us, we said by 4.5% of GDP by FY26. Now, just for context, FY25 number is expected at 4.9% of GDP. It is likely to fall below that, and it's likely to come in at 4.7 kind of a number. FY26 is most likely to be closer to 4.5 or 4.4% of GDP. So there is some fiscal consolidation that will happen in the economy, which is inevitable. But at the same time, we need to remember that India's growth is kind of falling. So India's growth, earlier expected at 7.2%, is now expected at 5.8%. And therefore, fiscal consolidation at a time when growth is falling may not be ideal. And therefore, it is time for monetary policy to step up. Now, RBI is having its own trilemma in a sense that, at one point inflation is high, so inflation is still above 5% versus RBI's target of 4%. And secondly, the growth is falling. And third, the currency is depreciating. So any policy stance that RBI could take could only help two of these three variables. However, in December, RBI has given signals that it is okay with INR finding its natural course, and that is why it has allowed INR to depreciate. So therefore, it looks like RBI has chosen growth and inflation as its preferred walking path. Again, RBI has also injected 1.5 lakh crores of liquidity in the economy. So 1.5 trillion in INR has been injected by RBI through OMOs, variable reverse repo rate auctions, and also the FX swaps. So all of this adds to the liquidity in the economy. It adds to the fuel and helps in running the economy smoothly. And it is bringing in the monetary reflation that India has not seen for quite some time. So policy-wise in India, it seems like while the fiscal will consolidate, it is the monetary policy that will do some heavy lifting here on. So in substance, it is a very, very interesting time globally, because all major countries in the world are now forming their policies, and whatever they decide and the path they tread on in the post-COVID world will shape the future of investments here on. So US policy making is all about making America great again, but his narratives are extreme, his actions are fairly balanced. Also, on the monetary policy front in US, the macros do not call for a rate cut because the growth is extremely strong and inflation worries are just starting to come in back at the margin. But Trump will exert the political pressure asking for rate cuts. So that dynamics between fiscal and monetary policy in US will be very, very interesting to watch. China's stimulus is getting further delayed because they wanted to use it possibly as a retaliation to Trump's attack on China, which has not yet happened. And secondly, I think this whole AI wave of China will anyway help Chinese economy on the margin. All eyes will be on union budget. How do we fiscally consolidate? What numbers are we able to deliver the economy? And how much can the government actually support the economy? Our case is that government will have to step back from supporting the economy, which means it is the monetary policy and RBI which will have to step up. RBI has shown some early signs by offering liquidity easing, by choosing growth and inflation over currency, and the chances of 50 basis of rate cut by RBI in 2025 are pretty high. Now, these macro factors will continue to shape the investing universe, and we are living through slightly turmoil time in the equity markets. But given how the policy globally is shaping, chances are that we will have continued volatility for next 2 months, but they are likely to ease. And the next 2 months will offer good opportunity to enter into equity markets. On the debt front, 60% medium duration, 40% long duration would look nice. US is a very, very stable call at this juncture. It is one market that is poised to do extremely well. So taking a 70% allocation to US and a 30% tactical allocation to China would make sense as an international diversification strategy. We are long gold and silver because both of these precious metals have fundamental drivers that will help these asset classes return back money to the investors. If at any case there is, inflation that comes back, precious metals will always act as a hedge against inflation and also against equity volatility. So that is largely the investing landscape that we are seeing. Once the policy formation is behind us, the other macro drivers will start to matter. But until mid-Feb, this is all that will keep the investors excited and wanting to bite their fingernails. So thank you all for listening in and happy investing.